Hi. This is Anna Imagination with a whole lot of nonsense. Nah, I wouldn't call it nonsense. It's actually the opposite of nonsense. It's some really weird shit. So, yeah, Anna Imagination with some really weird shit. That's where I'm at. There's some stuff that goes on with the mind where when you are healing and when you are trying to get through life, it's like you have this, what's it called? Standard. This thing that floats up. And if it rocks, all of your attention goes to fixing this. There is nothing else. You got to fix this. I mean, you got to fix this. We don't talk about this, but really, like, this is the core of everything. It feels like we are standing on a ball with a board and you're balancing it. Now, if you're balanced, you're fine. But if anything happens to that ball and your plank slides, you drop the juggling act and everything focuses on you've got to stabilize. I'm going to call this the stabled I don't know. It's just, it's your stability. It is 100% your stability. And what you build your stability on is vital to how well you do. It's everything. It's like you're on a fulcrum, you've got this balancing act, and if you don't have this part of you together, you're fucked. You're going to be fucked. When I read 7 Habits for Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, I had a problem. I had a partial problem. I loved what he said about the ethics. He did not talk about the 12 ethics. He just talked about ethics have to be the core of everything you do. And my thought was, well, that was highly logical. However, I did not yet learn that ethics change. Actually, they expand, and I'll get into that. So right there later, I found out that using Stephen Covey as a basis for that foundation actually affected my ability to gain or change my ethics. Oh, well, you can't change your ethics. Oh, well, you can't change your ethics. So this is where Stephen Covey's information actually stunted my growth because I had the mindset of you can't change your ethics. Ethics change, which means you can't use your ethics. Your ethics are vital to this, but that's not the core stability. And I go back to Socrates. Now, Socrates talks about stability and he refers to the archetype. And he explains the importance of the archetype being stable and unchanging, which is called truth. Now, Socrates got into this whole bullshit about gods and deities, which I think is really the problem. Throw that shit out. If you look at the archetype of what is constant and changing, and mathematics and science and in Mother Nature refer to this as truth. Truth is what never stops. That's it. Truth is what is constant. It is not changing. That is all that truth is. It is not changing. It is just the constant. Now, knowing what is the constant is what matters. You just have to know the constants. You know the constants and you can start building a foundation. When you know the constants, then you have knowledge. So knowledge is just knowing the constants. So the question is, do you know the constants? That felt good to say. And it's that simple. Knowledge is just knowing the constants, and the constants has a code name for truth. When you make the constants your core base, they will never change. Now you can build a foundation. So you really want to build a foundation off of something that's constant, something that never changes, which is truth. So this is where it gets interesting. The title of this particular episode is Lack of Epiphany Due to Mental Illness Leading to Physical Disease and Death. This is the name of an article that I wrote this morning for my newsletter. It's already out there. Go ahead and take a look at it. I merge biology with neuroscience and with Pythagorean psychology to make the connection of, does anyone else notice that dysregulation is not, or is occurring because it's not being flushed? Just like any other regulation, you need to have a flushing of everything. And I noticed this in logic. When you go through the learning progression, you have literally toggle integration. You toggle and then you integrate. And that's in everything. You toggle and you integrate. Toggle is you have A, you have B, and then you integrate A into B. And then you have C, and then you have D, and then you integrate C and D with A and B. And then you do E, and then you do F, and then you integrate E, F with A, B, C, and D. This is evolution, creation, growth, love, learning, logic, and truth. The purified form of this is called truth because it's all the constants. The ethics are A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's all those individuals. And it all literally just comes to this gorgeous, beautiful, the math is so freaking gorgeous. It's the most beautiful mathematics. It's so beautiful. It's clean. Oh, it's beautiful. So you can't just moderate. You have to go through toggling first. You must indulge to appreciate moderation, but it's not moderation, it's integration. You're not going to get moderation until you integrate. The science of integration and disintegration is everything. There is nothing else. It is literally at the core of everything we are, right down to the bare minimum, right out to the most magnificent magnitude that there is. It's beautiful. And I was thinking about it this morning, how we have these aspirations we want to rise to, but I never really talk about that foundation, that stability of making sure that you are standing on a constant. And that is really where truth comes in. That's really where everything just kind of summarizes. And it's something I never really focus on, is what are you standing on? Because it has to be something that is so solid and so stable that it never needs your attention. Let's do this. Let's do this. I'm going to hit edit and we're going to go through and I'm going to break this down. So there's to read this article, and then we're going to do today's topic. We are going to talk about making sure you have enough stability under you for self-sustainment. And that's really what this comes down to. Whatever you have under you has to stabilize you. It has to nourish you. That's huge. It has to stabilize you. It has to nourish you. And the minute it doesn't do that, why is it in your foundation? It has to stabilize you. It has to nourish you. It has to ground you. It has to energize you. I think those are really it. Stabilize, nourish, ground, and energize. And if it is not doing these four things, you do not have a good stability. Not at all. Not at all. So now I want to step into what it is we're looking at that we are all I can do is tell you what I've done. Love is what stabilizes me. Love and logic is what stabilize me. Love, logic, and truth is what stabilizes me. My ethics, these 12 ethics, my passions, my joys, my love, energize me. My dreams, my goals, my desires. I would have to say my passions, joys, and love ground me, but my dreams, my goals, and my desires, they energize me. That's where passion, and it turns into passion. learning and gaining knowledge nourishes me. I can feel that process happening. And I would dare say that the summation and integration is not the same thing as summation. You learn that in integrated mathematics. The summation and the integration are what stabilizes me. And yeah, you're going to have times where, and I think that's really it. I think that's really it, that is what you need to have in your core solid basis. So when I read Stephen Covey with 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, it contradicted this concept that ethics don't change. They do change. They do change. They evolve. They expand. No, they morph. They collect and grow onto each other. But they do not stay constant. And I think that is what I loved about Stephen Covey's book, and this is why I recommend it, is because it shows you the importance of ethics. However, it should not be the core stability. Your ethics should not be the ethics are the 12th generation of disintegration, integration away from the core. The core is rata. That's truth. And then you've got karma and dharma, which is the second disintegration from truth. And then you've got, the 4 cardinal values, which is the integration of the 12 ethics. So when you start to understand and work with everything in the integration disintegration lineup, everything makes sense. Everything is a chain reaction. Everything is a chain reaction. Understanding chain reaction science, understanding how chain reactions move and flow, what is really going on is integration disintegration. One person throwing one stone does not cast one ripple. Ever. Your decision does not cast one consequence. It casts thousands of consequences every single time. And it's this, I hate it when my stability goes. When my stability falls, I go, okay, what's wrong? And I know what's wrong. I'm having an interdispute on love because narcissists told me what love is. And I subscribe to the narcissist school of knowledge. Most people have subscribed to the narcissist's school of knowledge. I really don't want to call it knowledge. I don't really want to call it a school, but let's go with this. Narcissist's school of obedience. Let's call it that. The narcissist school of obedience and cooperation. That is what you have subscribed to. That is your educational system. It is the narcissist school of obedience and cooperation. Compliments of the Roman Empire. Rome. Romulus, who killed his brother. So that is who built your educational system. Narcissist school of obedience and cooperation. And that school taught me that love is toxic. True love is toxic. That is what I learned. True love is toxic. So when I got true love, I had this whole, that's toxic. And what do? And a whole bunch of narcissists told me, you got to cut that out of you. But it's real love. Yeah, but it's you got to cut that out of you. But it's nourishing me. Yeah, that's codependency. Based off of that definition, all parents are then toxic to their children and they should dispose of them at birth. That's real Spartan of you. So you could see where there's some contradiction in narcissists' concepts. And I refused to follow the advice of a bunch of narcissists. Now, what ended up happening for me was that left me going, okay, so then what is love? Now, this is not an old question for me. I started asking this question when I was 4, And they gave me the whole God is love, God is perfect, and God is jealous. Now, wait just a moment. Wait a minute. I now know what jealous is. Wait. I found the logical fallacy that I found when I was 4 years old. I had the wrong definition for jealous. I found it. God is love. Yes, God is love. God is logos, which is love. There's a whole thing behind that. I'm going to show that to you later. God is perfect. Yes, God is perfect because it is without logical flaw. So God is perfect. Yes. God is jealous. Yes. God is jealous. Jealousy means expecting truth. God expects truth. And if you lie, God's going to get jealous because he expects truth. Now, this makes sense. God is perfect. Pure truth is actually perfect logic. So, yes, God is perfect. God is love. Yes. But once you arrive at pure truth and perfect logic, it is literally being in love, which the Germans refer to as believe. Look it up. So being in love or believing is actually practicing the state of pure logic and pure truth. And when you reach that point, then yes, you expect pure truth because you've achieved it. Why wouldn't you? And when you enter into a bond with someone, that is really the only word I have been able to find for that kind of concept is it's a bond. I have no other word for it. It's a bond. When you enter into a bond with someone, it is the expectation of truth. And if the bond breaks, the cradle will fall. It was metaphor. It wasn't an actual baby. Rock. You're out on a limb. When you're out on a limb, like a bough, and the wind blows, you're unstable because you're out on a limb. You are so unstable that the bond will break and you will fall. When you go out on a limb, you are unstable. And when you are unstable, your bond or foundation will give way and you will fall. Rockabye baby in the treetop. When the wind blows, the cradle will rock. When the bough breaks, the cradle will fall. Down will come baby, cradle and all. The moral of the story is when you go out on a limb, you are unstable. And when things rock you, then your bond and your foundation will not sustain you because you are out on a limb and you will fall. The moral of the story is don't go out on a limb. Why was that so hard for everyone to figure out? I have been trying to figure out that for so long. I'm like, what the fuck is up with Rockabye Baby? And I have been trying to figure out what the hell it is for a very long time. Rockabye Baby is a fable with a moral in it. The moral got lost from the fable. Ring around the rosy, pockets full of posy. Ashes, ashes, we have... No, that is strictly very much a plague song. Children were really dark back then. Children were really dark back then. Children composed that riddle. How else do you make light of a really fucking horrific situation? Can you imagine being a child during the plague? You're going to play so you can get through it. So children composed Ring Around the Rosy, and they passed it down from child to child to get them through the hard time, because that's how children cope. They sing. That's how the Irish cope. We sing. Don't go out on a limb. You will fall. So my question now is, what is don't go out on a limb? Don't go out on a limb. Meaning of going out on a limb. I want to say it means abandoning logic. In or into a dangerous or uncompromising position where one is not joined or supported by anyone else. In a risky situation. There it is. It just means do not go out on a limb. That is what Rockabye Baby means. It just means don't go out on a limb. Don't put yourself at risk. Now that's counterintuitive. Intuitive. Counterintuitive. Against your intuition. Interesting. Intuition is logic. To say counterintuitive is to say illogical. Wow, isn't that fascinating? Counterintuitive. My daughter has discovered the joy of linguistics. So she is every day, she just is devouring the linguistic dictionary. And she's going into etymology. And she's going, that's what these words mean? And she's comparing the etymological root to the modern usage. And she's watching the evolution of the word. Words don't evolve. She's watching where the words are changing, who's changing them politically, and why. The majority of the words you use today were propaganda from the 16th century, which is the same propaganda that built your country in the 1700s, which is the same propaganda that built your educational system. In the 1600s, a lot of shit went down. A lot happened in the 1600s. So there was a lot of propaganda that took place at that time period. And Hobbes and Locke were huge figures behind that propaganda. Milton, King James, these are huge players behind this propaganda machine. You guys talk about the Russian propaganda train. You should have seen the 16th century propaganda train, and you all ate it. You all ate it. So that when they composed our Constitution, our government, our everything in the 1700s, it was borrowed from the propaganda of the 16th century. Filth, French aristocracy, and Henry VIII's moral compass is what built your educational system. How does that feel? So that was then later transferred over into your educational system. And as you dig out the etymology and you realize where that 16th century propaganda bullshit campaign muddled everything, suddenly words completely took on a different shape in the 1600s because they were used to manipulate for psychological purposes. Prior to that, there was nothing from the 4th century to literally the 1100s. There was nothing. And then when I look at intuition is just pure logic. So counterintuitive is actually meaning illogical. So at some point, and then, this is beautiful, Our narcissistic school was due to that 16th century garbage. The narcissistic school of obedience was built by that 16th century propaganda garbage with one intent, to get people to obey, cooperate, and conform. Because the world was literally falling apart at that point, literally falling apart. It was the first time the Roman Catholic Church was questioned and had a segment of it broken off. And then in 200 years, 200 years, it would happen again. And literally, actually, about 150 years, it would happen again because it was just intolerable. It was literally suppression. It was like, oh my God, you're suppressing us so much, we have to break off and abandon you. It's like what happens when a society squeezes the life out of you, you divorce it for resource partitioning, and then you go off. The poor people are on the dying side of this process. It's called resource partitioning. The rich, abundant people are on the healthy side of this. So the question for you is, oh my God, how the fuck do I get on the other side of this to make sure I'm on the winning side? Education. Education. That's the only difference between you and somebody who's really fucking wealthy is education. Wealthy people know this. They got the right education. The difference between a poor person and a wealthy person is their education. Read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. You just got a different education than they did. And then there's me, who just grew up in the cracks, and I got a whole different education. So this is you've now got 3 data points. We all have 3 data points now. So real wealthy, abundant people is what you would look at with their education. And you see that educational system in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He spells that educational system out for you beautifully. So just read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and you get to see their educational system. And he compares it to his poor dad, who came from the traditional educational system. The traditional educational system is your narcissistic school of obedience, cooperation, and conformity. That's where you went to school. That is its true name. And that is where you went to school. Hence, when the look at the world. That's the society their educational system wanted, so they got it. Now, I came from the ancient Greek educational system. So I'm like different. I'm really different. But now you've got 3 data points. So now you can go, ooh, look at this. Look at the 3 types of educational systems. You've got Rich Dad educational system. You've got narcissistic school of obedience, cooperation, and conformity. And then you've got the ancient Greek educational system. And now this is a huge let's compare mindsets. Like, this is a really fantastic mathematical project we all can do now. I need to sit down with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and we need to sit down, but that's not a good idea because I've already read so much of his material that I was definitely influenced. But that's where it's actually more of a spectrum. So if you look at a spectrum, it's my material is here, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is here. The science, it's Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Yeah, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is here. And then you've got poor people here. So poor people are here. Rich people are here. Abundance is here. Science is here. And then you've got me. So this is the spectrum. This is the spectrum. And once you understand the full spectrum of education, oh my God, it's like a whole different world. It really, truly is a different world. So let me grab that. I'm going to add that to the notes, is the spectrum of education. This is so, let me see here. La, 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 la. Yeah, right here. Okay. So the spectrum of education. The spectrum of education is vital to understanding where you are in the lineup, so to speak, of knowledge. And it's a question of, well, where do you want to go? Because your knowledge is what's going to get you there. Your knowledge is literally the vessel or the boat that gets you there. So the lowest point is mental illness, homelessness, and poverty. The middle point is science and or wealth. This is where it breaks off one way or the other. Science and or wealth. And you're talking about, I want to say finance. Finance is science. Middle point is science and or finance, and wealth. And then the highest point is, that's on the, I'm just going to call it the other side of science. The other side of science. And that's it. So you have poverty, and then you have abundance. You have literally like millionaires here, and then you've got billionaires, scientists, and that's all kind of there. So you're going to have some. It depends on what you study. If you study science, you're going to go this way. If you study finance, you're going to go this way. You can go both ways. And then you have wisdom, and then from wisdom and on, you have other stuff. You have that's my world. You have the world beyond science. You have the other side of science, which is where you get into logic, math, magic, physics, arcane, because it's literally the extension, the foundation, or the extension of science. And once you understand where you want to be, what you want to do in life, it's like, where on the spectrum of success do you want to be? How far down the spectrum do you want to go? And the biggest factor I see a lot of people contending with is, it takes time to educate. No, it doesn't. It does not take time to educate. That is spoken like somebody who's poor and who had really inadequate. You went to the school of narcissist, school of obedience, cooperation, conformity, didn't you? Anyone who thinks that education takes a long time, subscribe to the narcissist school of obedience, cooperation, conformity. It does not take a long time to learn. Not at all. It does not take a long time to learn. When you go to the ancient Greek educational system, it takes about 10 years to learn all of the subjects. You just have to know what to study with all of them. You need to know the right order, and you need to know when to start. And once you have, and then there's, from the narcissist school of obedience, we also have the jack of all trade bullshit, except jack of all trade bullshit contradicts people like, all the geniuses in all the world. So that's bullshit. You can be a jack of all trade and a genius of all. But that's what you get with the ancient Greek educational system. It's a jack of all trade, and that's it. Jack of all trade, genius of all. Yeah, there you go. That's what we subscribe to over here. That's our educational system. So now it's a completely different type of mindset, isn't it? A mindset is your educational system. You have the mindset you have because that's where you went to school. I have the mindset I have because that's where I went to school. Rich Dad, Poor Dad. His name is Robert Kiyosaki, I believe. It's Kiyosaki. He went to school at Rich Dad, Poor Dad school. And he's got his mindset. So your mindset comes from your education. It does not come from your feelings or your traumas. It comes from your educational system. Your educational system put it inside of you, which is why when I read Stephen Covey's 7 Habits for Highly Effective People, and he's sitting there telling me, because, he's an expert on this apparently, he's telling me, oh yeah, your ethics need to be the source because they're constants. They're not constants. They are not constants. Turns out he wasn't an expert after all on ethics. He was partially right. It was very right. He does express the importance of ethics, yes. But should it be ethics? No, it should be the truth. Truth is the true constant. Truth is the true constant. It's in the name. That's why you can trust it. Truth is the only thing you can trust. Truth is the only thing you should trust. It's in the name. Truth, trust. So, understanding or recognizing the difference between the narcissist school of obedience versus any other educational system is really vital to seeing where you're talking out of your educational system. And things like jack of all trades, master of none, it takes a long time to learn. That's narcissistic school bullshit. It does not take a long time to learn. Not at all. That is fucking shitty. Are those the same people who gave you bad teachers? Bad teachers are such an oxymoron. They are the epitome of illogic. Only the narcissist school of obedience, cooperation, conformity could ever put out bad teachers. You're like, that's the dumbest thing in the world. Bad teachers. That is like, how can you be a bad teacher? You have one job, to know education. How can you fuck that up? You're an educator. So when you fail at education, you really need to sit back and question the educational system. Like, that's a huge red flag of, wow, they don't know what they're doing. They have failed to educate. And it's narcissist school. It's 100% narcissism. You send your children to school, you are literally sending your children to how to be a narcissist. You send your children to school, they're wonderful people. 2 years later, you're going, oh my God, you're such an asshole. It must be your friends. It's the teachers. It's the whole system. It's in the curriculum, how to be an asshole. It's in the curriculum. You stand at the front and you talk down to everybody. That's exactly what our narcissistic schools teach us to do. It's what our children are, it's what you are subjected to. And if you don't do what everyone says, they bully you. Sometimes the teachers will egg on the students to do it. Sometimes the teachers will literally gang up the students after you and then laugh at you. It's the teacher who stands you up and humiliates you in front of everybody. It's narcissistic school of obedience, cooperation, and conformity. It is such a toxic hellhole. And we have so much bad faith and trust in there. And, you know, we're getting to a point where we've gotten away from it. We've realized it. And I know what it was for me. It was massive shock. It was shock because I thought the problem was this big. And then it was shock because I thought the problem was this big. And then it's, oh my God, the problem is this big. So it took me a few weeks to adjust to this new, I overestimated the problem. And I went, wow, this thing is a lot worse than I ever thought. And it was very discouraging for a while. It made me angry. I went through this 5 stages of grief. I got angry and then I got depressed. That's why I was depressed, because I went through the 5 stages of grief. The 5 stages of grief are a very small fraction of your cognitive core processing center. It is the part that goes through perspective processing. It is your inventory in your purchasing section of your brain for your resource allotment. It is the part of your brain that says, oh my God, we are experiencing a loss or a gain in our inventory. Quick inventory that shit. Are we looking at losses or gains? What is this? Loss or profit? Loss or profit? And the whole brain just lights right up. It immediately does these massive calculations to determine if news is going to create an abundance or a surplus or a deficit and scarcity. Optimists have a constant surplus of positivity and abundance. Pessimists have a constant deficit of resources, and they're constantly in resource allotment. It is really toxic and dangerous. Really, really toxic and dangerous. If you are skilled at forecasting, that's what this is called, purchasing forecasting and supply and demand. If you are skilled at this, then when data comes in, you have the ability to regulate. It's called regulation. You have the ability to regulate a proper, correct mathematical forecast. It just means that you're skilled at the math. And math is my weakness. It is my shame. I'm not going to lie. Math is my weakness. Math is my shame, which is why I have people checking my math. And I have got to study calculus. That's really what this is. This is a deficit in calculus, and I have not studied calculus yet. It is my big shame. I need to study calculus. I know I do. That way I can calculate with accuracy. So I'm doing all of this shit without any calculus. And I am really, really seeing, this is why I can't calculate time, is because I have no calculus. That's it. I just cannot calculate or estimate time because I lack calculus. As soon as I get calculus into this brain, I'll be able to go, oh, wow, I can do everything. And that's really, I can see where not having calculus is a huge problem for me. So I started studying calculus yesterday. I read through the whole front section of it and I went, okay, I have work to do. And it was amazing. As soon as I started to read about it, I actually saw this whole thing about algebra is about the order of operations. Calculus is about calculating. And I went, yes, that is correct. That is highly logical. That is absolutely in an ordered, organized fashion. Why are they waiting until calculus to teach us this? The most impressive thing is this. At calculus, somebody realized you cannot go further until you understand education. So calculus is where real education actually begins. That's bottom line. Calculus is where real education actually begins. You cannot bullshit anything after calculus. You cannot bullshit anything after chemistry. You cannot bullshit anything after physics. You cannot do it. Because if you get it wrong, the science won't work. Bottom line. You cannot bullshit logic because the science won't work. So when you get to a certain point, it just won't work. The whole thing just collapses in on itself. So you learn as a scientist how to build this shit from solid, stable fucking science, or you don't move. You just don't move. And it's the most beautiful, breathtaking thing I have ever seen in all of my life. It is breathtaking. So now here's my question. Do I want to reverse engineer calculus or do I want to do it the traditional way? Which is really the new way, which is the narcissist way. Should I just reverse engineer calculus? In order to do that, I would have to go back to the beginning, which I should be going back to the beginning anyway, and I should reverse engineer mathematics. Now, I did that with integrated mathematics, and I went, well, there's two mathematics here. There's integrated mathematics, and then there's regular mathematics. Fascinating. I've already studied geometry, but I have a hypothesis that calculus needs to be studied before geometry. According to my math book, that's actually, see, and I have a book for this already. I just need to sit down and do it. Just for this is as far as I got in this book. I got to page 20. And that's when the logic turned on in my brain. And I went, oh, I understand. And there was nothing else I ever needed after this. I got to this part. No, I got as far as 33. Determining hypothesis and conclusion. Methods of proof, plane geometry. This is why you are supposed to study geometry, because when you study geometry, you actually study logic. Right here. So 43, plane geometry. I don't think so. I made it to chapter 44. Yeah. I never went. Nope, I did. I highlighted everything in my book. Oh, I made it through a lot further than I thought. Oh, plane geometry, congruency, parallelism. Oh, yeah. So I just completed on logic, and I'm like, I'm good. I don't need anything else. Yeah. I literally felt I did not need anything else because as soon as I got to plane geometry, congruency, and parallelism. But really, I completed the definitions and methods of proof. That is what I did. Logic is in geometry. Oh, it's in geometry. This is beautiful. Yep, this is just hardcore logic. That's all this is logic. If it is raining, then it is cloudy. It is raining, therefore it is cloudy. That is logic. It's just if-then clauses. What? If it is raining, then it is cloudy. It is raining, therefore it is cloudy. If-then clauses. So this one bothers me. If it is raining, then it is cloudy. If it is cloudy, therefore it is raining. No, that's false. That is hardcore false. Yeah, that's hardcore false. You can feel it. If you are a mother, you are a woman. You are a mother, therefore you are a woman. If you are a woman, you are a mother. No. Yeah, she's got it. She's got it. Yep. That's logic. That is logic. If you are a good citizen, then you will vote. You are a good citizen, you will vote. Wow, that's brainwashing. See, good means ethical citizen. I'm going to show you the false logic in their logical example in their proof logic book. Good means ethical. So what they're really saying is if you are an ethical citizen, then you will vote, as if voting has to do with your ethics. See? If you are a good citizen, you are a good citizen, you are ethical. No, the ethics has nothing to do with voting. So what they did in this case was they did not define the word good. Because they did not define the word good, they were using a false, now you have a false premise. So if you are a good citizen is a false premise. So there you go. Because you have to define good. Good means ethical, bad means unethical. Good means integrated, bad means disintegration. But that's not true, because disintegration is part of, it's literally 1/4 of the process of the integration process. You need it. So it's neither good nor bad, ironically. Good for you, bad for you. Interesting. So it's neither, again, ethical or unethical if it's good or bad. No, good or bad is ethical or unethical. However, integration, disintegration is neither good nor bad. There it is. So if something is bad for you, it's because it's unethical, whether or not it's integrating or disintegrating. Some disintegration is good. Good for you. Ethical. See, we're back to that again. Good and bad refers to your nourishment, your health, your growth, your deterioration, your death. This is bad for you. But one could argue that death is good because you need the balance. I don't think that's true. I think it is unnatural to die, because I knew too much about biology. I'm looking at this is why biologists are working hard to end disease, because they know it's an anomaly. We're not supposed to die. According to science, we are not supposed to die. According to science, our bodies are supposed to be immortal. It is a weird fluke that they get disease and die. That's not natural. In fact, that is the opposite. That is the absence of nature happening. It is not natural for us to die, because we are not seasonal. We're perennials. It doesn't make any sense. Perennials should not die. If a perennial dies, it's because they contract a disease. You have to know biology in order to understand mental illness. You cannot do mental illness. You cannot do psychology. You just figure what? Yes? A disease.
As in mental illness?
And, I'm asking the question if mental illness is an actual disease. Yes. Yes, it is. Mental illness is a disease. It is the deterioration and the destruction of your logical code. Yes, it is a disease, and it does lead to resource partitioning in your brain, which causes literal physical deterioration. Read my article that I wrote this morning. Yes, mental illness is a disease. It is the first disease. It is a consequence of logic breaking down. It is the compromised integration life code of integration disintegration inside of your brain. So that as you start to break down your logical code, you begin the disintegration process. And the only way to reverse the disintegration process is through logical application to restore the integration, because integration and disintegration is logic itself. And as soon as you start to contaminate it, your entire logical code begins to literally disintegrate. And it will disintegrate to the point of comprehension, which will disintegrate to the point of you're no longer learning, which will disintegrate to brain degenerative disease, which will disintegrate into you doing things to your body to harm it. It's literally self-destruction, which is exactly what biological resource partitioning is. So, moral of the story is you should have received like biology as part of your entire Asha journey. So vital to the Asha journey. I just can't do it anymore. I cannot try. I cannot. Everything good in my life, everything, came from my ancient Greek educational system. Everything toxic, bad, horrific, diseased that came out of my life came from the narcissist school of obedience, cooperation, and conformity. Everything. It was extraordinary. And really, I think that's all I want to do. I want to talk about the ancient Greek educational system. I want to talk about rich dad, poor dad's educational system. I want to talk about the common denominators between these three educational systems. I'm going to tell you right now, there isn't any. Because the narcissist school of cooperation, of obedience, cooperation, and conformity is not at all education. It's a poison system. It's just pure poison. You know, I was talking to one educator, and they said the reason why they're an educator is because they're trying to save the children who are there. I thought that was very... There are people who come from very toxic homes. And they need a place to go that isn't home. It would be basically homeschooling alternative. For children who want to get a quality education, while also stepping away from an abusive home. I almost want to call it a homeschooling respite, an education respite for children. I would love to do this. This is actually something I'm going to build with my franchises. This is going to be worked into my franchise so that this is literally a child who wants to skip school, they can go here. A child who needs shelter from an abusive home can go here. Somebody who wants the education, but they're being abused at school can go here. It's literally an anti-abuse school. Oh my God, yes. How does that sound, everybody? An anti-abuse school. Now you're going to ask me, how the fuck are you going to pull that off? Easy, 12 ethics. The 12 ethics teach you what abuse is, where it comes from, what it looks like, and how to stop it. So all you need is an environment that's literally an anti-abuse school that implements the 12 ethics. Literally easy peasy. And because it is such an emphasis on the anti-abuse, here's the best part. You can immediately take the children who are abusive and say, if you're going to be that way, you need to go back to the other school. You have three options. You can go home, you can homeschool, you can go back to the public school system, or you can work with us and we will teach you how to handle the situation better. Learn, leave. It's literally a learn, leave environment. Either you learn or you leave. Those are your only two options. It's a learn, leave environment. I am huge on this because it is absolutely free will, power of choice. And when you go through the 12 ethics, and here's the beautiful thing, is we'll be teaching logic here. So children will have formal argument and debate so they can communicate their problem efficiently without having to resort to abuse. People abuse when they can't communicate. People abuse when communication fails them. People abuse when they can't communicate. That's all it is. That's all abuse is. Failure to communicate. So when you're looking at the narcissist school of obedience, cooperation, and conformity, and you're looking at, well, what kind of a mindset is that going to result in? I'm not going to get into it. I don't have to. Look around. Every single one of you attended that school. You've got substantial data. Look at all the common denominators. You've got economists who can't build a stable economy. You've got teachers who can't teach. You've got psychologists who, yeah, look at the place. You've got filthy, immoral politicians running your educational system. So you're going to have a filthy, political infused educational system. You know this. So the question is, how do you change it? That is a big question. How do you change it? I will tell you how to change it. The first thing you've got to do is get educated. That's all I do here. Step one is you've got to learn. The second thing you've got to learn is how to turn your brain on, because it's off right now. Because your narcissistic school of obedience and cooperation and conformity turns your brain off. So your brain has to get turned back on. So you have to turn on your brain. You have to get healthy, because you can't do anything until you are unfucked up. So you have to get healthy. Now, after you get healthy, there is something that happens at stage 4 that's amazing. Stage 4 is my favorite fucking stage. It is like, woohoo! It's juice. All right, so I'm going to tell you what happens at stage 4. A side effect of mental illness is memory loss. We all know that. It's why none of us can remember anything. But that memory loss is from your subconscious mind suppressing data. So that when your subconscious mind stops suppressing the data because it's relaxed, it lets it all go. Which means everything you have ever studied comes back to you. I forgot 90% of the knowledge in my brain. 90%. Good fucking God, that is spot on accurate. I forgot 90% of the knowledge in my brain. And when I healed, one of the weird things that happened was I started to remember everything I had studied. I would study an entire discipline and then forget it. And then study an entirely new discipline and then forget. Because my subconscious mind kept shutting itself down to protect me from self-preservation due to all of the trauma I endured. And I kept thinking, oh my God, I got to learn. The more I learn, the more I can go forward. The more forward I go, the more I can get out of this shithole. So then I would read this book, apparently only up to chapter 40, and then page 40. And then I would forget it all. It was extraordinary. I would read a book and I would forget it all. But I didn't forget. I just forget on the surface. I didn't forget deep down. My daughter came to me and she showed me this passage in Sophie's World. Now, I read Sophie's World when I was 15 years old, and it turned my logic brain on. Now, I didn't process this. I did not process this. I just went, I read the book. And then I promptly forgot almost everything about the book on the surface level. Oh, my subconscious mind remembered it. So this morning she was having me read through this passage. And I'm going, holy fucking shit, that is the same style of writing that I use. It is when you use the reader's point of view to take them into a street, to give them a tour of something inside of it, while you're showing them, this is over here, this is what's over here. I use this in like 3 of my books. And I went, son of a bitch, I got that from Jostein Gaarner. Clever. You literally take the child or the reader right inside the story, which is how he did it. That's how he did it. Oh, what a beautiful genius. See, he subscribed to the school of ancient Greece. He knows that if you want to take somebody, this is why I'm doing a whole how to watch TV. This is how you do it. Literally learning TV or TV is actually the best tool you've got. We all should be watching TV at this point, but you need to know how to watch it. And I'm going to be teaching you how. So the first thing that the narcissist school of obedience, cooperation, and conformity teaches you is that learning is hard. This is not true. Learning is not hard. The next thing that it teaches you is learning takes time. No, it does not. No, it does not. No, it does not. This is the part that's really going to piss you off. And I'm sorry I had to deal with this piss offedness too, but I got through it okay. Most people do not. All of music theory is literally condensed into a 300-page book. Everything you need to know. Elizabeth, how many pages is Sophie's World? Is that a 450-page book or a 500-page book? All of philosophy is condensed into yes, Nietzsche would be in it. Yes. It's a whole book on philosophy. Nietzsche will be in there. 500 words. All right, so 500 pages. So all of philosophy is condensed into 500 pages. All of physics, classic physics, is condensed into 300 pages. Why is it taking you 5 to 10 years to study 300 pages?
If you read 1 page a day,
And they take 12 years. Why are they taking 12 years to teach you this shit when it should only take 300 pages? You read one book, it has to be the right book. You read one book and you have all of philosophy. So why the fuck are you studying philosophy for 8 years if you're just studying philosophy? I didn't study philosophy for 8 years. I read Sophie's World, and then I studied all the academic disciplines. And it was in studying all the academic disciplines that I went, oh, but I know how to condense physics into a 300-page book. It's called, oh, what's the name of the book called? I got it right here, actually. Oh, I don't know where it is. So let me put it to you another way. So this dude, John Lindo, is the dude of Norse mythology alive today. This dude teaches at the university. He is the professor of California, Berkeley, and he is the dude for Norse mythology. Let me emphasize this. This is where Wikipedia quoted its sources from. So when Wikipedia is talking about Loki or Norse mythology, they're actually getting it from this book. This book was written by John Lindo, the dude who knows about Norse mythology who's alive today. And he took all of Norse mythology and put it into this sized book, which is only a 400, not even. Okay, let's go all out. Let's include the index. 400 pages. All of Norse mythology in 400 pages. 400 pages. How long does it take you to read a 400-page book? Let's do the math. How long does it take you to read a 400-page book? For me, it takes me about 2 days. So in 2 days, I can have all of Norse mythology crammed into my brain. Yes. Yes. You can do this in 1 week. You did not learn how to learn. I'm going to tell you right now, you did not learn how to learn. This is the part where I got really pissed off. They are so bad at teaching that they take a 300-page equivalent book and they drag it out for 12 years. Mathematics, all of mathematics, takes 2 to 4 years max for you to learn. Just math. History, you're going to get pissed. All of history, 2 hours, 6 pages. Yep. All of history. That's not including Asian. That's not getting into China and Japan. But Americans don't teach that anyway, do they? No, they just spend 4 years doing 2 hours worth of work. They took 2 hours worth of work and dragged it out for 4 years at least. So when you're reverse engineering something for comprehension, oh, that's a different story. I'm going to tell you right now, reverse engineering for comprehension is an entirely different thing. Reverse engineering for comprehension. Now that takes time. But that's what you should be learning in school, is how to reverse engineer for comprehension. Now, it took me about 30 years to figure out reverse engineering for comprehension. Now, once I did that, I went, oh my fucking God, I can reverse engineer all of this in 2 days and be done with it. So it takes you about 2 days to reverse engineer. Once you know how to do it, you can reverse engineer an entire academic discipline in 2 days. That's what I'm doing right now with biology. I'm reverse engineering biology, and I'm aligning it with what I know about neuroscience, and I'm adding what I know about Pythagorean psychology on top of it to see how all the pieces are working. Boom. I may have discovered the cure to all disease. Really serious about that. So I'm looking at this now going, okay, once you understand how to reverse engineer for comprehension, then you are looking at 2 days, literally 2 days. It's not hard at all. Once you understand, and here's the thing, is it's all relative to all the other professions, all the other academic disciplines. So once you have down, it's just like a foreign language. You know, when you learn the first language, you're like, wow, this is really hard. And then you see the mathematical pattern of the foreign language when you're learning the second one. By the time you get to the third, your brain has computed the mathematical pattern repetition and can go, oh, I know how to speak language because I've broken the code because I have 3 data points: French, English, Spanish. Boom, I know language. Then the fourth language, it takes you like 3 months to learn. Fifth language, you learn it in like a week because it's figured out the logical code. The academic disciplines work the exact same way, identical. So that once you study 3 academic disciplines, oh, but how many of you have actually done that? And that's the problem. The school should be doing that with you when you were like 5, 6, 7, 8. That's all they should have been doing with you, which is all the ancient Greeks did with their students. Is they had the children come in and they would go, okay, you're just going to do music. You're just going to do song, dance, music. And then they give you, okay, you got song, dance, music all straightened out. Now let's give you drawing, painting, sculpting. Your brain is going to start to see mathematical pattern all over the fuck place. Your brain turns on. This is what I mean by turning on your brain. And then your brain's going to pull out the pattern recognition, and then it's going to switch it over to the next grouping when they give you reading, writing, and arithmetic. And then you put it all together and you go, boom, I got the world figured out. Get out of my way. And you really don't need anything after that because the brain will take over and just do. So there should be no teacher after reading, writing, arithmetic. What is that, 5, 6 years old? There should be no teachers after a child is 5 or 6. They don't need them. The brain, the mother nature's on her own. She's got them. Your job is just to get them over to that point. But your job is to preserve the child to get them to that point. That did not happen to you, I guarantee it. If you did, you would be sitting in a YouTube space like this talking about this shit. And that's the difference. That is the difference. That's why Japanese children go, oh, you know what? Maybe we should give our children music with logic and math. And boom, look at all the geniuses coming out of Japan. It's because Japan figured it out. Americans are really stupid because they have the narcissistic school of obedience, cooperation, and conformity going on. That's not education at all. That's slavery. You went to slave school. I was already a slave, so I recognized slave school when I was in it. And I went, fuck that shit. I think that's really what did it, is because I was a slave, I was able to immediately recognize slave school because I had something to compare it to. So that by the time I got to 2nd grade, I went, wow, this is exactly like my slavery at home. Fascinating, interesting, real fascinating. You cannot hide slavery from people.